Hello, for those who do not know me, my name is Jason Yantz, born July 16th, 1985. Thank you for taking this time to listen to what I have to say. Hopefully, it inspires your life and hopefully, it just moves you. Grew up with no religious background whatsoever. So, with that, didn't really have an idea of what God was, nor even knew that there was a God. When I was 1994, PE, second period, and it was raining this particular day, so we had to do cardio, so there's no way around it, so we had to run in the gymnasium that particular day. Well, I remember distinctly, just as if it's happening right now, just sliding on my shoe, I didn't tie it tight enough, and it was running around. Eventually, as I was taking steps, my shoe is getting a little bit more slack on my right foot. Well, eventually my shoe gets flung off and all my weight lands on my great toe and shoves the toenail inside, causing staph and osteomyelitis. I had to deal with the pain throughout the whole rest of the day before I could tell my mom what had happened. When I got home, my sock was just crimson. It was just soaked and saturated with blood. My mom saw it. She took me directly to the hospital and they did an emergency amputation. Thought that was the end of it, you know. Within a month's time, maybe a month and a half, with no abrasions or lesions or anything, another toe was starting to fail, and my doctor's kind of scratching their head like, well, this doesn't make sense, but we have to do another amputation. So they did, and at this time, I'm like, well, why bits and pieces of me leaving me? And people would say, well, that there's a God, why don't you pray for him? I said, well, if there's a God, I don't like him, because why is he doing this to me? I don't want anything to do with him. It seemed like he did this curse to me. Why do I want to worship somebody like that? Well, like I said before, I'd never had a religious background. I didn't have a belief system, so I didn't really know what God was. I had many amputations. It took about the fourth surgery for them to realize what I have. And what I have is Charcot-Marie tooth, which is a degenerative bone disease and neuropathy. The degenerative bone disease is like osteoporosis in a sense. It's just the bones just deteriorating. Mine are at a fast rate. But I started getting hooked on pain pills because naturally when you have surgery, they give you pain pills to take. Well, they started me out on Vicodin. Well, I was taught, I guess, in an early age that if you weren't feeling well, you take this and this helps you feel better. Well, I took that idea, loved it, and I ran with it. I was a full-blown addict by the age of 10, maybe 10 and a half. Using probably about 10 Vicodins at that time frame, and I'm still in elementary, high on Vicodin, I thought this was the norm. Hey, you don't feel good, take something, you feel better. All right. Yeah, I became a raging addict. It didn't just stop with pain pills, it started with everything. I did everything. Meth, PCB, formaldehyde, ecstasy. You name it, I done it, except for heroin, which I'm thankful I never crossed that line. I remember at the age of 12, I asked my doctor, with all these surgeries going on, it just made me belittle myself, like I wasn't adequate, like I wasn't like the next person. I didn't have all the appendages like them, so it made my self-esteem very low. So, of course, drug usage became a little bit more heavier, just trying to cope with it. That was the only way I knew how to cope with it. I asked my doctor when I was 12, please cut my foot off. Please. Just save me the mental anguish that it was doing upon me. It was just killing me inside. My doctor said, oh no, we'd never have to go to that extreme. Unfortunately and fortunately, I finally got what I wanted. I remember when they did my BKA, which is below the knee amputation. This is something like I had asked, and I remember sitting on the operating table waiting for them to gave me the anesthesia and all that medicine. And I remember just like a wave of ecstasy just coursed over my body, and I just felt extremely warm, and it just felt like a prayer had been answered. Something I wanted to happen finally happened, and I was just at peace with it. And I know that kind of sounds a little weird, but I mean, if you were in my situation and things are just taken slowly but surely from you, you'd rather it just be taken it all instead of slowly but surely. With that, I became at peace of mind with that, but I was still doing drugs heavily. I didn't want to say I was an addict at the time. I thought I was sly. I was Mr. Slick. I could fool you, but in all actuality, I was just fooling myself. I just didn't want to deal with what I was dealing with. I have a rare disease that is not too common. It's very rare. All they can do for me is give me some neuropathy medication and some painkillers. Well, me and painkillers go a long way. I've been recovering addict since January the 1st of 2011. I was going to the extent of eating fentanyl patches. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but they usually give that out to cancer patients. I was eating the patches and overdosing. I had overdosed many times. There's no way I should be here on this earth right now. I was just an emotional wreck. I didn't want to live. I used to cut myself. I remember asking my sister, this was when I lived with my parents before I moved out, when she was coming home, and she said, I'll be there in probably like 5-10 minutes. I was like, okay. Well, I downed a 750 milliliter bottle of Crown Royal, smashed the bottle, grabbed the biggest, sharpest shard, and commenced to try to commit suicide. I put a major gash into my wrist and commenced onwards up with my arm. Well, at that time, my sister pulled up and saw me and started crying and wrapped a towel around me and sent me to the hospital. I just reacted because life was just too much to handle. The drugs was just making me not think, literally. I was at my wit's end, honestly. Went to rehab, sobered up for about maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks at the max, about a month. Then got back into the drugs, started doctor shopping. Doctor shopping is when you go to multiple doctors in a month to get in the same prescriptions. My pain pill tolerance was about 60 pills a day, and I was getting a count of 120, so 2 days worth of 2 days for me to get high, which should have lasted a month. I'm surprised that my liver is still functioning with all the Tylenol that I flooded in my body. But I still had disbelief with God. But I became, instead of atheist, agnostic. I thought, well, there might be a God because there's no way I should be here, but I am. I thought that's a lot better than being an atheist. Well, I did my own research, and I got into the dark arts, like satanic stuff, more or less. I always had some compassion for the devil. I always was a devil's advocate. If you wanted to talk about Christianity, I wanted to just be as blasphemous as possible. I didn't want anything to do with it. That's because I didn't really understand it. And when you don't understand things, you'd like to criticize it. So yeah, I became a Satanist or a Luciferian, if you will. Things still didn't go the way I hoped and wanted. That's because I wasn't going in the right direction. And I remember meeting my cousin David. He asked me, we had a little conversation about God, and he had asked me, well, do you accept Christ as your Lord and Savior? I said, no. He said, well, I have another question. Would you go to church with me? I said, yeah, well, why not? I tried everything else, and nothing else seemed to work. The only thing I never tried was going to a Christian-based church. So let's just give it a shot. I tried everything else. How is this going to hurt? If anything, it could be very beneficial. I was willing to go try something else. because everything else just did not work. And this is the last resort, the only resort that seems to make sense now. Um, which is weird because I'm with my CMT, the Charcot-Marie tooth. I'm blind. I have glaucoma because it attacks the nerves, the neuropathy. Well, it attacked my optic nerve, so now I'm blind, which is so strange because now that I'm blind, I'm starting to truly see what things really are, and it's so ironic. But I'm thankful, and I don't blame God on my circumstance. I I I accept the fact that He had nothing to do with it, or if He did, it was for Him to draw me closer to Him, which I'm just so thankful and appreciative that He's so patient, ever so patient, because uh, the times that I thought He wasn't there, He was there the whole time. I just never sought Him out. Since I never had a relationship with God, now I'm trying to seek Him, and I just can't help but want to learn anything and everything about Him. I'm more willing and yearning for this answer, and I never thought that Christianity would be the answer. It sounded too simplistic, and it just seems like this is too good to be true. There's a big catch, but there's no real catch, and I'm just grateful that I understand it now. I felt like a barrier that I had built up was crumbling, and I'm starting to see some light. And it wasn't hideous. It was something that was warming and embracing and comforting to know, comforting to feel. Honestly, I never expected such a emotional change just come pouring out of me. I didn't cry, but I just felt this sense of like everything is gonna be all right. And I never really had that feeling, and it's a feeling that I want to embrace and that I want to pursue for the rest of my life while I'm here.